Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Judith Patterson. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Texas, and once a week I like to hop on YouTube and show you how to create a card from the catalog. Today, the card that we're going to be making can be found on page 55 of the January to June 2022 mini catalog. And it uses the Bragworthy stamp set and also the Cloud Punch. So if you watched my videos before, you know that the Stampin' Up's publications are my favorite places to find inspiration. And so I go to the catalogs often for inspiration for cards. Sometimes I copy them exactly as they are in the catalog and show you how to do it exactly as they've done it there. And sometimes I change things up a little bit. So today's card, I'm changing things up just a smidge. The layout is exactly the same, but I did change the designer series paper. So the card in the catalog, and let me just go ahead and flip this open so you can see what I'm talking about here. So this is the card that I'm going to be making today, and it uses some retired designer series paper as well as some current designer series paper. So the Abstract Beauty specialty designer series paper is used on this card, as well as the Subtles designer series paper and the Brights designer series paper. But those are the Brights and the Subtles from the old catalog, from last year's catalog, not from the current annual catalog. So what I did was I decided to go ahead and use the new 2022 to 2024 in color designer series paper. And let me just grab that in case you haven't seen it yet. I've already used part of my pack here, but so these are the 5 colors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's different patterns. So each one is double-sided, so you'll get some of this piece in each color, and then some of this piece in each color. So I thought this would be perfect to use for the clouds. And then the background, I'm using just a piece of the Starry Sky, which is this darker blue here. But it's just a solid piece of cardstock. And then, of course, basic white for this one, and then I'm just using a scrap of basic black for the sentiment. I did change the twine because this one has retired. And I changed the embellishments just because I decided to use the rhinestone basic jewels. I use those a lot, and I don't know why. I just felt like, well, I liked the way they looked with this card, and I also asked my youngest daughter, and she said those are the ones I should go with. So that's what I did. Okay, so I've also changed just a smidge the size of this card. So the one in the catalog is 3.5 inches by 6 inches. I like to do a 3/4 inch by 6.25 inch card front, just because you can cut down if you're doing 3 by 6, or not 3 by 6, but if you're using 6 by 6 designer series paper, you can cut a piece of that in half, and it'll fit perfectly on the front of this with just a little frame around it. That's not what I'm doing for this one, but I still thought that would be a good card size to use. So this is, again, it's 6.5 inches by 6.25 inches, and then that 6.5, I cut it, or I didn't cut it, I scored it in half at 3.25, and then that made a 3.25 by 6.25 card front. And then this piece is what I'm going to be using the Splatters embossing folder with. I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. It's 2.5 inches by 5.25 inches. So let's just go ahead and emboss that real quick. I am using my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. This one is just super duper handy to have at my desk. and these narrower embossing folders fit perfectly inside them. Okay, so let me hold that up so you can see that texture. Isn't that amazing? I love all these splatters. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just grab some sheets of that Designer Series paper. I've got one of each sheet, and I'm using one of each of the designs. So like I said, they're double-sided, and so you can pick and choose how you want, and you can throw in some solid cardstock colors in there if you want to, but I am going to just go for all the Designer Series paper. I always like to turn my punches upside down when I punch, so I can see exactly what I'm punching. Okay, so the next step is to grab just a scrap of basic black cardstock. I am going to use my embossing buddy to get any static out of there that might be on that cardstock. You can also use a used dryer sheet. So I have the stamp that says, "I'm here for you, seriously, just try to get rid of me." Inking that up with Versamark and stamping it just in the center of this piece of cardstock. I have no idea what this cardstock measures, by the way. It really is just a scrap I grabbed out of my pile beside me here. Okay, so now I'm going to use my basic white embossing, or my white embossing powder from the Basics set of embossing powders. Just going to sprinkle that over the stamped image, or the stamped sentiment. Add a little bit more because I missed some places. Okay, let's heat emboss. And there we go. Can you see the difference that made? I can't tell if the camera is really picking it up or not, but it's all melted together and looking good now. I love white embossing powder against black cardstock. I think it gives it such a sharp and clear image. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this down. This is why it doesn't matter what size your scrap is. So I'm cutting pretty close. A lot of times I like to just use the where the hole starts inside the trimmer as my guide on where I'm going to place my cardstock to do the cutting, because I know that if my words are just barely covered up by this plastic bit, then I know I'm not going to be cutting into them. Okay, I'm going to cut just a little bit off of the ends. Go. Okay, so there's our sentiment. The next thing I want to do is grab my Parakeet Party baker's twine, and I'm just going to tie a bow. There we go. And then I'm going to use my little paper snips. Cut the end of this off. And I have found that all of these fit in one of these little bitty, I don't know what these boxes are called, but they have a little lid. They don't fit with the lid, but I can put my linen thread and my in-color baker's twines all in one little container and then just set it in a drawer or on my desk. Very handy. Okay, so I'm going to use my liquid glue now and put all of these clouds on my card. And you can use whichever side, like I said before, that you want to use. And you can use whatever embellishments you have on hand. Another good choice for embellishments for this card would be the in color embellishments that match the twine. I'm just kind of using that as my guide. I don't want too big of a gap between these two clouds. Then I'm going to use this one as my guide down here. There we go. So this one I'm just going to tuck under. There, that looks good. Okay, then I'm going to grab my dimensionals and use those to attach this piece to the front of my cards. So I'm putting this one closer to the left edge, but I'm still leaving a little bit of a gap there. And then I'm trying to center it up vertically so that there's the same amount on the top and the bottom, but I want a little bit more here on the right, a little bit more room. Okay, so for my bow, I'm gonna grab 2 glue dots. Just going to put them right here on the back, fairly close together. Then I'm going to use those to hold my bow down. And I want my bow to be crooked, so I want part of it to go off the top and part of it to go off the bottom. And I'm probably honestly getting a little bit too picky with this, but that's what I do. There we go. Okay, and now I'm going to use 2 more dimensionals, fairly close to the center of the cardstock, because I want them to both be on this piece of cardstock, otherwise it'll be a little wonky. There we go. And now it's just down to adding the embellishments. So I'm using the rhinestones, like I said before, and I'm putting them in the same places that they did in the catalog, just because that way I don't have to think about it. I like the way it looks in the catalog. If I didn't, I would change it, but since I do, I'm just going to stick with those same places for the dimensionals. And if you don't have this tool, you probably need to get it if you're a fairly often crafter, because it is so handy. I use it all the time for all kinds of things. I have this part open because earlier today I took apart a card by sliding this between the adhesive and the cardstock, and it really helped to loosen things up. But the other side of this is pointy, which is also handy for a lot of things. But I think the side I use the most is the sticky side because it is so good for picking up embellishments and placing them on your card where you want them to go. This tool is called a take your pick tool. Alright, so there's our card. It's really quick, really easy. I love that it's using all of the new in colors because I think they are so much fun. They're great party colors, they're great tropical colors, they're just good colors. Alright, so for the inside of the card, I'm going to grab another piece of basic white cardstock, and I'm going to cut this 3 by 6 inches. There's the 3. And 6. And that's all I'm going to do for the inside. I'm just going to add this one piece of basic white cardstock. You can add a strip of designer series paper or another cloud. There's a lot of things that you could do to dress it up a little bit inside if you wanted to, but I think this one, I'm just going to leave right here like this. There we go. So for comparison, there's the card from the catalog, and there's the card I just made. So I hope that this gives you ideas on how to use the catalogs for inspiration and change things up a little bit. And I would love to know if you decide to make this card and use even different designer series paper than I used, or if you really like the in colors. Let me know if there's a card from one of the catalogs, one of the current catalogs that you would like to see made, or if you would like to see me try to change something up with a certain stamp set or designer series paper. I would love to do that for you. Alright, so have a great afternoon. I have my link for shopping up underneath this description, or this video, in case that you want to see the products that were used, or maybe you want to purchase some of them for yourself. Thanks again for watching, and have a great week. Happy stamping!